Right, so let's welcome to the stage our fabulous panel. Hi, guys. I promised them rapturous applause, and in fairness, it wasn't rapturous. Okay, I swear that it gets better. No, it's all good. So I'm going to introduce you guys. I was going to ask you to do it yourselves, but we have 6 people, and that could be the whole seminar. So what I'm going to do is, you've all provided these lovely bios, so I'm just going to quickly scoot through them. So Tom Sherlock is second from the end here. Tom is Dublin born, has worked as a full-time music professional since 1982 when he began employment with leading Irish folk music label Cladder Records, very well established and well known and one of the world's largest distributors of traditional music. Tom has worked closely with many big acts including the Chieftains. Barry Stapleton, beside Tom here, is he works with the Milwaukee Irish Fest. Barry has been involved in booking that festival for 28 years, and the Irish Fest in Milwaukee hires 100 artists who perform over a 4-day weekend in August. Lisa Schwartz, again, do you like the fact that I'm sort of going in a random order here? There's method of the madness, is the artistic director with the Philadelphia Folk Festival. It is, of course, a world-renowned festival, and the event has 100 acts on 8 stages and welcomes upwards of 35,000 patrons every year. Again, a lady that many of you will know, won't need an introduction, is Angela Dorgan. Jumping over to the end here, she's the CEO of First Music Contact, FMC, and of course they do wonderful works. They're Arts Council funded, national resource organisation for musicians. Also involved with the annual Hard Working Class Heroes Festival and BreakingTunes.com. And again, if you're a musician in Ireland, you'll know those. Dawn Beaton is artistic director with the Celtic Colours Festival. She is a Gaelic style fiddler and a step dancer and artistic director of the Celtic Colours International Festival. Where do you find the time, Dawn? That wasn't a question, that was rhetorical. And Steve Johnson is the artist relations manager with Merlefest. And he's been involved in the music industry since the 70s.
I was a younger man then.
He was... you could have lied. You could have just said the 90s. It would have been fine. We would have believed as well, definitely. Most recently involved in promotion management company called Mountain Music Entertainment. He started that company himself in 2010. All right, so listen, you are all very, very welcome. And I think we all know each other, well, we know you guys a little bit better. I want to kick off, if you want a tour, and I'm going to let you guys just get stuck in here, whoever wants to get stuck in, whoever's the eager beaver. If you want a tour as an artist, what are the basic things that you need to do and you need to get right? Tom.
Choose your territory first.
It's the first thing.
Yeah. You've got to look at your territories. It's a big world. Do you want to tour in Ireland? Do you want to tour in Europe? Do you want to tour in North America? In Asia? The Chinese market is opening up for acts I work with. Japan. Australasia. Choose your market. Find out who the players are. It's unlikely you'll be able to do it yourself. You're going to need some help. You're going to need expertise on the ground. You may be able to get that help here in Ireland through agencies like Angela's, through state agencies, through support agencies like IMRO, like Culture Ireland, like the Irish Arts Council, DFA, the Department of Foreign Affairs. But before you go to them, be very clear on what territory you want, what it is you're selling, because you're selling something. There's a business transaction at hand here. Everybody here is here to do business. And be clear on what you're selling, be clear on what it is, be clear on what your brand is, be clear in your I'll take it as a given that your artistic visions are there and your creative process is there and that you're established as musicians and artists. We'll take that as a given. But after that, know your territory and find out who the players on the ground are who can help you achieve your clear goals and ambitions.
I would agree with that, but I'd say before all that, why are you touring? So your first thing is why, and then you're where. And what's amazing, certainly in our sector and certainly in 2018, is you can do a lot of homework before you go. 2 decades ago, you would go to Germany, cross your fingers and go, hope somebody turns up. Now you can look at your Facebook analytics, your Instagram analytics, your Twitter analytics, and see, okay, where am I being downloaded, or your Spotify analytics, whatever, and you can see an audience emerge, and you can see a demonstrable audience emerge in a target. What I would say is it sounds awfully big, but everything you do abroad is basically the same thing you do here, but amplified. So you still have the 3 corners of what you need to do for a release. Bring out the album, get people talking about it, and tour it. And then you do that on a territory-by-territory basis. So the why is very important. Why Germany? Why France? Why? And then Tom's dead right. Who do you go to? So Music from Ireland, the export office that we run, is at the top of the kind of a continuum of care that we deliver. It's funded by the Arts Council, and we have based on where we go as an organisation, based on where you're demanding us to go. And again, that's based on analytics, sales, global sales of Irish music, appetite in that territory for our music, etc., etc. And I think the other key thing then, I think you guys will agree, is the team. Very few festivals worth their salt will go directly to a band. They will deal with the same agents over and over and over again. So make sure as you're targeting those countries, find an agent who knows everybody in there. So if you're targeting festivals in Europe, it's Eurosonic. If you're targeting North America, it's South by Southwest. And then if you're targeting territories in Canada, there's festivals in Nova Scotia and New South Wales. If you're targeting folk in America, kick off at Folk Alliance. So all of this information, as Tom said, it's available through us, it's available through Culture Ireland. And I think, first of all, your music has to be good. So don't forget that either. And then as you're going on a territory by territory basis, I have, and as we're Irish, I always use the 3-legged stool analogy. So before you go to a territory, have at least 2 legs of that stool ready in each territory. So if each 3-legged stool is a label, an agent, and a publisher, then make sure you have leads on at least 2 of those before you go to a territory. Otherwise, it's a very expensive holiday.
Could be a fun holiday though, but
Great fun. Always great fun.
Playing the gigs to nobody, I'm sure it could be. From the other side of the fence, from the festival booking side of the fence, what are you guys looking for? What stands out?
I would say we're always looking for, we're a little bit jaded because we're out there seeing bands all the time. On this trip, I think I'll see, 50, 60 bands, artists from Ireland and Scotland. But you need to be unique. You need to be enjoying yourself on stage. That's just one of the things. You can be technically perfect, but if I don't see happiness emanating to me from the crowd, that's an issue. You need to be entertaining. I think most of us are outside festivals, so it's a little different. What you need some dynamics in an outdoor festival. It's different than what Tradfest is doing here, where they have these intimate venues. So you want to make sure you match up with that. So yeah, I would say something unique and that sets you apart and that you have fun are kind of the things that I look for.
So for us, it's entirely authenticity. We're a very traditional-based festival. We come from a storied ancestry. We're predominantly Scottish, but there's a lot of Irish influences on Cape Breton Island itself, which is where Celtic Colours is based. And we have a very strong and thriving culture. So we are 75% Cape Breton artists. For us, it's about forming collaborations. It's about educating our audience. It's about telling not only our story, but our collective stories. And if you can get on the stage, as we do for every single show, over 49 shows in the festival, and put a finale and find that commonality and portray it on stage in a 7-minute finale, you are gold for us. So being open to partnerships and collaborations, and even just investing a small amount of your time understanding our festival and our culture will go a huge and long way for me as an artistic director and for our audiences.
Yeah, I'd have to really dovetail on that. I mean, to say you have to be good, I mean, we're very lucky. I mean, right now, there's just so much exquisite music out there, and it is more than just being good. I mean, I put people in two categories. There's plays well with others, and then there's runs with scissors. If you're runs with scissors, you'll never get booked at my festival a second time. And so the dynamics is very important, but you have to be professional. And I know that means something different to everybody, but it really is just being. Yes, it's being authentic. Yes, it's being unique. Yes, it's knowing what your goals are. Yes, it's being able to collaborate, but it's really being gracious. And God, you know, you have a gift that the rest of us mere mortals don't have. So, like, don't, you know, share it. Don't laud over us, you know. So I run the festival as well as do the artistic direction, and I do a ton of mentoring all over the world. And for me, it's just like, what am I looking for? That thing, and you can always tell who has that thing, and you can't put a word to it, but you get to, and it's the grace that comes out when you're performing. So that's really important to me, you know, and that's what I'm always looking for, because we are outside. So I'm on an 80-acre farm. So if you're looking for that diva moment, you don't want to have it. I mean, you know, there's not going to be a litter of people that are going to carry you from your, you know, air-conditioned dressing room because you don't want to get your shoes dirty. You're going to slog through it just like the rest of us. It's on a working farm, and it's going to be, you know, the most fun you've ever had in your life. And that's going to happen at your event and your event and your event and my event. So.
And if I can add, maybe to kind of tie all this together from what we were talking about earlier, I was looking around the room, and at least one person here has played Merlefest from Ireland, so it's possible, I'll say that. But the other piece of it that I will mention to you, Merlefest, 14 stages, 4 days, 85,000 plus attendees, the spectrum of everything other than hip-hop, rap, or electronic, the rest of it fits. And I encapsulate it by saying the 5 W's and the 1 H when we're looking at what we're going to do for artists that are coming to the festival. And you may have heard this in other places, but it applies, I think, in the music world as well, especially with what we do from an artistic curation standpoint. It's the who, how do you identify yourself, not the band, the Who, just to be clear. How do you, the who, which is how do you identify yourself as an artist, the what, and what are you bringing that's different than any other artist that may be appearing that we're looking at. The why do you want to be there in the first place, what's your goal, and where have you been relative to other markets in the U.S. and why might they know you? But if not, where have you played at other festivals anywhere in the world that seem to be somewhat contiguous with what we do at our festival? And the piece of that I think that's most important as an artist is really the differentiation piece. If we're looking at bringing any number of you in the room to a festival in the U.S., what is it about what you do that would differentiate you from your peers? And I think that differentiation becomes important, especially when you're looking at performing at a festival where there may just be a small amount of opportunity to bring in an international artist. So what makes us want to look at you over anyone else that may be in your peer group? And the H of that is the how part, and that is how do we get you there? And not only from a financial standpoint, because there's a lot of cost involved with getting you there, obviously on your part, our part, but how does it make sense for all of us in the big context of exporting you as an artist to a festival in North America? So the who, what, why, when, where, and how is basically what that boils down to. So I think I covered all of those. If I didn't, catch me afterwards, and I'll reiterate that again or cover it again after we're wrapped up here. But the differentiation, I think, becomes a huge piece of that, especially if you're dealing with just a small amount of opportunity in terms of international artists for your festival.
I want to dig down on the financials, because obviously the bottom line is going to be the bottom line, and it's going to be an important aspect of any decision that you make. You don't want to lose money. The artist doesn't want to lose money. And obviously, you guys have to, in many cases with international acts at least, and from an Irish context, you have to get them there. And it has to be right for everybody, the financials. So in terms of finances, could somebody start breaking down exactly how it works? I mean, is this a conversation about here's the fee, but also we'll take care of the plane and you'll take care of, I'll get you some food on the farm, we can milk the cows and we can have whatever else, how does it work? What kind of deals are being done? And how does it operate? The
I
money
can
side?
get to a little bit of that, and actually we have a position paper that gets into taxes and visas on our website, irishfest.com, so you can see the costs there. But the costs of that suck. I mean, it's just, there's no way else to put it to play the U.S. Tom can attest to that through the years, and it's only gotten worse, and it's probably going to get worse again, you know. But so if you hire a band, we don't pay airfares. It's included in our fees. I don't know if that's how you guys are. We provide food and local transportation, and that's about it. You know, so, and what we may do with a new band, if there's a new band that we're excited about, we may have 1 or 2 bands a year where we know what their costs are going to be coming in, you know, so we can make that offer knowing that they're going to walk out with at least break it even or a little money. You know, it's just an opportunity, and then we'll offer to pay the visas for that. But that's unusual. Then the second time you're back, you know, the visas are on you. We've taught you how to use the system, because the system's very difficult to get through. And your first time over, it's going to be expensive to get an agent. It's going to be, you know, a CWA, which is what you need to get to play. Might cost you a couple $1,000s if you don't have a CWA. We've got to deduct 30%, and that's just it. That's
A CWA. Sorry, again.
Central withholding agreement, and so that would be something that an agent. So like we don't withhold it. It's an agent that you have to hire. So they withhold it, and then you can get that money back. But sometimes that might be 24 months, you know, or something. So it's a pretty crazy system. So if it's your first trip to the States, I think you have to prepare to lose some money. I mean, I think I'm being frank about it. I don't know any other way. I mean, unless you really have an agent that can put together a good tour. You know, if you're really, you know, if you're hosier and, you know, I mean, and you're climbing fast, that's one thing. But it's difficult that first tour, I think, to break even or make a little money.
That withholding tax can operate as a form of a tax allowance on income tax you will pay here. And I know many artists, when I say that to them, they smile wryly at me and say, what tax do I pay here? But the fact is, the tax will be stopped in certain territories. Canada has actually changed its tax laws in recent years. They're much more artist-friendly. But the USA, I'm afraid, is going the opposite direction.
We don't like artists.
Yeah. I would speak just to before that. So yes, for commercial events, you have the withholding tax. For showcase events, it's easier to get in. So you brought up Hosier. Hosier's first entry into the States was we brought him to Southwest. So that first outing is showcase event. It's 2 events we do in North America, and you can get in on a visa waiver because you're not earning any money, but it also means you're going all the way to Austin and you can't book any other shows, and they can look you up, and you know, so it's not we'll do it, but we won't tell them. They have eyes on everything, including Facebook and Instagram and everything. So I suppose to showcase first, you don't have that. I suppose the opportunities when you're going to showcase and then tour, there are different funds available. So there's the travel grant that's available through IMRO, or if you live in Northern Ireland through PRS. You get funded under Music from Ireland for the 14 events we showcase at. But then Culture Ireland have 3 deadlines a year. So there's one coming up in February 15th, June 15th and October 15th, for activities, whether they're showcases or tours, happening 6 to 8 weeks after those dates. So for instance, if you want to do a tour or a showcase in, say, August, one of your showcases the 3rd weekend in August, you need to be making that application in February. And then there's a second layer that's really useful that we introduced in 2011 with Culture Ireland, where if a festival in Europe wants to book you, and you have a booking, and we designed it in a way because fees can be very small if you're a small artist, and then you're expected to buy your flights and accommodation for that festival in Poland or in Switzerland or in Germany. The festival, there's a grant in Culture Ireland that the festival can apply to Culture Ireland directly for your flights and accommodation, so it doesn't interfere with your guarantee. And then tours, if it's your first tour out, they will fund tours in Culture Ireland again, will fund tours in all over the world, and especially in new territories like China and stuff. Again, make sure you have the application in ahead. And you don't need to have a whole tour, but if you have some key events that you have an official invitation to, they will help with flights, accommodation, and sometimes visas. So that takes a big chunk of those costs away from you when you're a first time. But then when you're going back and you have an agent and you're making a lot of money, these other things become a little more affordable. But there is stuff your agent needs to brief you on, or you need to know to ask them about, which is withholding taxes from state to state. Germany has a kind of a double tax that sometimes, you know, it's great to tour in Germany because there's loads of people there and it's a great circuit, but you have to be aware that it could be 3 to 6 months till you get the entire fee and the tax from all of that as well. So it's useful to know that those grants are available and just keep an eye on the deadlines.
May be available.
What do you mean?
Well, you're not guaranteed of getting them.
No, apply. It's a competitive. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, but make sure.
May be available.
Yeah,
Don't assume you can just, you know.
Well, it's competitive, like any other funding. It's competitive. The same as I think IMRO is competitive. It's not you apply, you get it because you're applying. It's obviously it's all competitive.
Steve, financials. Is it you mentioned international bans? What kind of arrangements or what kind of conversations do you have about how you can make it work for both sides?
Difficult ones. No, I think it's fairly customary that at least in the U.S., most festivals are not going to assist you with your visa costs. They're probably not going to assist you with your travel costs. That's true for us.
Can I ask you a question? How much is a visa, a working visa? And again, I'm speaking from a position of ignorance here, but
Well, I've had conversations with agents, in the UK and Ireland, and it varies. But and some of my colleagues here may be better poised to answer this. But you're generally talking, somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 to $500 per artist, maybe even more. So
it's about $2,500 for a band.
Yeah. So
regardless of the pieces, Angela, it doesn't matter.
There's
It doesn't, regardless if it's 1 person or 10 person, it'd be $2,500. What adds up is all of them. Yeah, but if you had to, they all have to go to the embassy, and that's $190 for that thing per person.
Well, and I was going to say the qualifier per person on that. The qualifier on that is that per person. So you're talking, maybe $500 per person in a 5-piece band.
Whoa.
So now you're talking, almost the amount of money that we may offer a band just to come to the event. So it really, depending on the artist or the band, but I just did a breakdown with an agent in the UK for an artist that we were looking to bring over from London. And we really wanted the artist there, but they broke down the visas and their travel costs. There was a 5-piece band at about $500 per person within the band for their visas. And then you're looking at probably, anywhere from $500, if you get a good rate, to $1,500 for airfare, and that's booking far ahead. So now you've spent another $5,000 on the airfare just to get the band there. So now you're talking, $7,500 or more, and you haven't even paid the band yet. So now you're looking at, compensate the band fairly, and now you're well over $10,000 to look to bring, a 3 to 5 piece band into the festival, and that's just looking at really covering their costs to get there. Now we provide accommodation at our festival. We cover their accommodation. We provide hospitality, and we do ground transport. But generally for us, everything else is on the artist. In rare cases, do we cover any other expenses? So if you're looking to come in as a solo artist, it's a little different conversation. But if you're looking to bring a full band to the festival, at least for us, and if you're thinking, a normal compensation may be anywhere in the $3,000 to $5,000 range for an artist that may not be known in that market, it's easy to have costs that are $10,000 to $15,000 just to get any band into the U.S. And then they are hit with, in our case, a 34% tax on top of any fees that they receive. So it's 34% federal, or a 30% federal tax that we were talking about, and then a 4% local tax. So for the state, so you've got a 34% taxation on top of that the artist is responsible for. That's the reality of trying to get to at least America to do touring. So as someone said
I think
earlier,
we're losing the room.
Yeah, right.
People are considering
and
another
and
career.
everyone,
People are
yeah, and then
considering
everyone
leaving.
walked out of the room. But But I
Tell them
want
about the good stuff.
yeah. But on the plus side,
It's great crack.
there is this benefit to going back to what I said earlier. If you are willing, someone said it earlier, take the loss to get there the first time. Some of the artists that I have worked with that have come over from the UK or from Ireland or anywhere in Europe generally get a following as a result of that, because it is something new and different. It's not something that everyone is seeing all the time. So I do want to emphasize that as well. If you're willing to take, a little bit of the risk or shoulder some of that loss on the front end, you can gain a following from appearing.
Do you
at
see
some
it
of these
happen
festivals.
regularly? Like, do bands take hits to come to a festival, an international festival?
I've seen it, and I would yield to.
Yeah. Or use one of these festivals as an anchor for a tour.
Right.
So
Right.
don't have it be the only stop
course.
on your,
That makes sense.
Well, that's the thing, right? So when I always say don't make it like your destination is my festival,
Yeah,
because I'll never
sure.
be able to pay you enough for that, right? So, but I work very hard to clear the way. So even though we have, I'll clear Radius on a band because they won't have a following in the United States, but I'll want them to get one very quickly. So to kind of stomp on that curve, I'll contact venues in my own marketplace and say, listen, they're coming in. If we work together, it becomes a much more sympathetic. We can actually help to create a routing, and Steve and I talk. I mean, my festival's my festival's also the third weekend in August. So yeah, because you always take. I can't make it. I know, and you always get Wee Banjo 3, and I curse you, but I say that with love. No, I don't. But no, seriously. I mean, we talk to each other all the time to try to help acts out. Like, who are you looking at? And Steve's, events in April and mine's in August. And then, I work with a lot of other festivals just to say, okay, what are you doing? Like, and how can we try to build something so that it becomes less about a loss and more about an investment? And you touched on something, Angela, when you said Folk Alliance. That is the best thing that any to showcase at Folk Alliance, to be with a captive audience of presenters is just they're like, it's like you're in, you're trapped in that hotel, you can't get out, and you just keep going up and down out on the elevator to all the different rooms. And I've booked so many. Haven't you booked like a ton out of there?
Yeah, I don't want to understate the importance of going to the professional organizations in the States or even here and participating in those showcases, because that's often, at least for, I know for Lisa and myself,
sure.
that's where we look for artists to export,
Wow.
and if, to the point of it's a showcase, then you don't have to worry about the taxation, the fees, that type of thing. But I think it's important to don't underestimate the power of that, because I have found so many artists, international artists, that we bring to Merlefest as a result of coming to events like Tradfest or other things like that, where artists are showcasing that we may not have had the opportunity to see them otherwise. So I do think those things are important. Getting involved in those professional organizations and associations does have merit, especially if you're looking to get yourself in front of talent buyers and festival buyers. That's where most of us look for those opportunities.
I would follow up on that and a little pitch that we are having next October. Irish Fest is hosting a conference of the North American Irish and Celtic Festivals group. So that'll be 20 to 30 festivals coming to Milwaukee to look at bands to hire. And so that's on our website, and you can see that and do those showcases. And you're right, you don't need a visa for that, provided you don't get other funding or compensation. But along those lines, even if you do get a paid tour, it's your first time. I don't know about the rest panelists, but I mean, I very rarely hire a band sight unseen. I want to know. I mean, the CD's great, but I want to know what stage I can put them on, what they're like, what their personalities are like. So find a way to get in front of us. Find a way to get in front of us. If you're coming through, so I'm in Milwaukee. If you're coming through Chicago, send me a note saying, hey, come on down, see us or something like that, and just know who as Tom said, know where you want to play, find out who the players are, email me, call me, and say, listen, this is a new band, that I think's hot. And other musicians always send me, emerging artists too. So, but you need to get us in front of you. The thing we get today is an email from somebody. We are the best Irish band ever. Check out my website. And if you think I'm just in front of my desk surfing for new bands' websites, it's not true. And I don't think any of us hire bands that way.
Barry, just on that, just as a case study, how did you come across We Banjo 3? Because I know it was mentioned.
Well, we had
sore point.
We had it was actually kind of pretty amazing because we knew Fergal and Enda for years with
Scahills,
the Scahills with Brock McGuire band,
Yeah.
and so we were doing a bluegrass showcase that year, and then Enda had just left Brock McGuire. And so the story goes, well, I mean, it's what happened, but so we had hired Brock McGuire for the bluegrass showcase, and then Enda starts contacting us and saying, I got this great new band. Well, in the business, you don't hire somebody that splits off from a band right away. There's a little loyalty there, and we said, hey, you get the blessing from Brock McGuire, we'll go with it, because we knew how good they were. And we waited and we waited, and I wasn't going to do it on Enda's behalf. And finally, Brock gave the blessing, and it was literally a couple weeks before the festival. And we had them on a very small stage because we had everything else booked. And they just took off like wildfire. Yeah.
And how was it for them? How many years have they played in Milwaukee?
So this year will be their 7th year, I believe.
Right.
Yes, every year that they've turned me down.
Okay, that's a real bone of contention there. Steve.
Well, I was going to say, if I could build on that. So We Banjo 3 is coming to Merlefest for their 2nd year in a row this year.
Yeah.
And to use them as an example. So you'll appreciate the story, but this is the first time I've ever booked a band basically sight unseen, because I'll go back to you don't normally do that. But a band that has played our festival every year, Scythian, has played our festival every year for probably the last 10 years. They're a U.S. band, Irish-leaning U.S. band. Don't throw things at them, but they said you need to book this band from Ireland because they're the real thing, and because they were recommended to us by one of our core permanent bands that plays, has played for many years. I said, sure, send me music, make the introduction, that type thing, and they did, and so we booked them. So those things can happen. Like I don't want to say that it's a total impossibility. If someone has played the festival, makes a recommendation, we take a look at it. It's if you've known someone and trust their work, you're going to listen to their word. And I do want to say this too. It kind of ties into what someone else said earlier. Not to take too much time with this, but I was at Americana UK last year in London, and a band found out that I was going to be there that's based in the UK. They arranged to be an opening act for another band at the Green Note in London so that I could see them. And what I found out after the fact, and we booked them for this year for the festival, what I found out after the fact is that they had made this entire arrangement to open for this band, traveled 3.5 hours to play at the Green Note for 30 minutes, and traveled 3.5 hours home just so that I could see them perform. And on merit alone, like they were musically good, but on merit alone, I thought, if you're going to go to that much effort and you're moderately good, I'm going to book you for the festival.
Don't
so,
book them, marry them.
So I share that too to say, someone said that if you're in the area, let us know, and they kind of found out I was somewhat in the area.
Okay. So, Dawn, are you going to see some music when you're here?
Absolutely.
Okay. Have you seen any music or anybody
not
caught your eye?
Yes, and we've only just started, so there's a lot more.
Are you
time.
just in? Have you just?
I came in on Tuesday, but I'm here both in Ireland and Scotland for the next 2 weeks.
Scouting.
Scotland, yeah.
Scouting bands.
Yes, but Scotland as
Yes.
well. But
Scouting.
scouting.
Scouting in Scotland.
Just checking the accent
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And is that so? You guys, the four of you guys, will be booking bands off the back of a performance that you see in the next few
So
days.
I will say this because I find as an artist, I can kind of wear both hats. The one thing I would say to an artist, having now been in the administration side and the booking side, if we don't book you the year that we see you, that's okay. Please have patience with us. For me specifically, we have done themes since 2009. The first year was actually the year of the Irish. That was the first year we did a thematic presentation for the festival, and we focused predominantly, not entirely, on Irish acts.
Who played?
Lots of folks. We had, yeah, that's so long ago. Anyway, but my point being that we sometimes work and have to work as an annual event 2 to 3 years down the line. If we see something, our memories are long, and we will remember an act that we have seen in various capacities. So I would just ask for patience. It's okay to email every now and again, just don't email every month. That would be really helpful. We just can't manage our inboxes that way. We're here. We don't always have Wi-Fi. So
How many are acts on your bill?
So we're 9 days, 49 shows. We are geographically dispersed amongst 35 communities that range. Cape Breton it looks small on the map, but it's a good size island. And I would probably book separately 150 separate acts. We have some choirs and bigger acts that allow for upwards of 450, 500 artists total that we manage in those 9 days. So it's a significant,
And
for a small island.
Like Steve have you had acts that have played every year?
Well, we're 75% a Cape Breton based. Again, to my previous point that we have a thriving music scene and ancestry there. So yes, in that capacity, we do. I want to spread the wealth. We're going into our 22nd year of existence, and there are times where it makes sense. Again, given the geographic spread, to have an artist come maybe 2 years in a row, so that I can program them on this side of the island and ensure that if they missed them the first time and they heard word, because I tell you, word of mouth is the most powerful form of advertising, then I'll bring them back so that another region of the island will see them. So it's worth it. But 2 or 3 years in a row.
Okay. I want to get into maybe some of the practicalities of touring in terms of logistics, because obviously it's key to get all of these people up on stage here, to get them across and get them in a good setup for the tour. Crew. What are we looking at in crew in terms of how many people do you need to actually bring with you?
That very much depends on
How
what
long
your
is a
act
piece of
is.
string, yeah.
How long is a piece
Okay, how
of
many
string?
people would you
It's-
bring to China
Well,
the first time?
Well, the only way you're going to, well, not the only way you're going to China, but last year I toured the chieftains in China.
Okay.
And there were 15 people on the road. But that's a big show. That's a big show. It's untypical. I will tour Lancome, I hope, in Canada this summer, because 5 different festivals want to collaborate to get them there. Why do they want them there? Now, this is back to what everybody has said here. Because there's a network of people. There's a peer-to-peer network among buyers, presenters, producers, artists even. And that peer-to-peer network is key to selling whatever it is you're selling. And Lancome are doing well on that network at the moment. So there's some real interest from these, and the festivals are prepared in this instance, just as you referenced, to work with each other and to help the band make it happen. But in that case, I'll be sending out the band or a 4-piece. At most, we'll go with a sound engineer who will also TM.
Yeah.
So one.
It
And
depends.
Lean and mean.
Yeah.
And will Lancome, will they all share the driving, or will the TM do all the driving? Or I know this is kind of very basic
well,
stuff.
no,
but
it so happens with
probably.
that band that they're particularly democratic and they will share the driving, yeah. But it may not be the case. I have another band touring at the moment, and they're a rock band. Well, Hudson Taylor are touring in the UK, and then they go to Germany, Holland, Denmark, and Sweden, all on this current tour. The lineup there is 6 in the band, front of house, TM, stroke merch, and monitor engineer. So 9 on the road.
It's
So-
an economy of scale, isn't it? It's your first time out. You TM yourself and you act like grown-ups and you get up on time. your second, third time out, maybe you have media appearances. So you do, when it starts to get big and there's multiple shows in a week and you don't have like gaps of 2 days in between. So it's, 30 days, 29 shows. That's when you need a TM. So you need someone while the band are on stage to be planning pickups for the next day and all of that. So I think the leanest you can get if it's a big show or a bigger show is obviously the people on stage, and then
band has to be there.
And I think what people forget is the most important thing for, yes, the people on stage are the most important thing for a sound, but most acts, and I'm sure all of you will agree, you get an engineer, you get to a stage where you only want that engineer. So, showcasing and all of that, you'll say yes to a house engineer. But if you're touring and that tour and loads of people are spending money on it, you do want to bring a front of house with you. So the overall sound is the 4 of you on stage and the engineer. That's your sound. Then TM, depending on what you want to do. And then it's an economy of scale. So if someone like your record label or your agents or pre-money or pre-tour money is at your disposal, that's when you get the splitter vans and the catering and the foot rubbers and whatever it is your fantasy
That's when the
is.
girlfriends and wives and husbands can go on tour as well.
Well, there you go.
No, that can never happen.
That never happens.
It's too much of a distraction. But it is an economy of scale. But there are, I know bands who will go on tour with the front of house and the people on stage. They will share everything because they have to, because they can't afford anything else. And then a TM, most of times in my experience, in the second tour out, your TM is probably your manager as well. And then as it goes up and up, most managers, once you get to a stage and you have a really great agent and a really dependable tour manager, the manager is at home doing your tour for next year in 10 other territories. So it is an economy of scale.
So I would just mention too, from a festival's perspective, we in Canada, we fly in every artist. We look after them. We cover the drives. We cover accommodations. We cover meals. All of that. And we don't have a visa to come. There is, over a certain threshold, there would be a withholding tax in Canada based on the various political affiliations around the world. So from our perspective, we're going to pick you up at the airport. It doesn't help if it's for our perspective, and we're out of the way, so we're going to bring you in because we're off the beaten path and we're in October. You don't need a tour manager necessarily for our perspective. And although it makes sense if you're coming on a multi-tour date to have front of house, from our perspective, experience has shown that it doesn't help things. We have a very experienced tech staff that come in. We hire them. They know the venues. I will admit, and this was mentioned at the opening show at Tradfest yesterday, yes, we do have hockey rinks in Canada, and yes, we do use them for musical venues. But they're great. They're wonderful. And we do cover the ice. You don't have to slip and slide. Anyway, but we treat them in a way that is musically sound. And I've had shows where we bring in big artists and they insist upon bringing their front of house. And there's a markedly different experience the first half versus the second half. And that doesn't help my audience. It doesn't serve a purpose. We have our best interests. We have the artist's best interests at heart. And we know how to make a fiddle sound like a fiddle, and that matters to a fiddler, to a violinist. So for a festival that is a not-for-profit, that works on certain means, it doesn't help me to have to fly in your front of house. So
Okay.
I would greatly consider that.
So yeah, but you guys are used to dealing with TMs. That you're not going through bands mostly. You're going through a tour manager. Would that be true to say?
No, it really depends. I mean, there are some, to your point, it's like put your big boys and girl pants on and they are lean and mean. I mean, I have 2,600 volunteers at my event, paid sound, and pay top dollar for my sound. And I've had like stadium acts that I've booked that, we're bringing our own front of house and we're bringing our own snake and we're bringing, it's like, yeah, and then they come out and they're in an 80-acre farmer's field and they're like, yeah, we don't know how to do this. You're right, you don't know how to do this because you're used to doing it inside a venue, not here, so why don't you just let my guys do it? And invariably, that's how that works. I have videographers, I have archivists, and they're all volunteers and they're all there And this is all they do all the time. So again, a nonprofit. So my organization and my festival, we're 57 years old. I mean, this isn't like Bob's Pretty Good Music Event. I mean, we've been doing it a long time, and we know what we're doing, and we're going to try to make it as easy for you as possible. And we've had the same question. It's like, well, we've catering. You know, we do grand transpo. If we need to, we don't fly you in, but we need to pick you up at the airport. We'll pick you up at the airport. We need to take you to the airport. We'll take you to the airport. We'll take you to the hotel. I have bands that want to stay. I have a 40-acre campground. I have bands that want to stay in the campground with the ticket buyers. And I'm like, as long as I can tie a string around your ankle and pull you out at some time, go for it. You know, I mean, it's if that's what you want to do. That's
You sound very hands-on, which I like.
Me?
Yeah.
I actually camp in the camp. I camp in the campgrounds on site, and my compound is, everybody knows where it is, and people wander in all the time. If they want to tell me whatever they want to tell me, and I just think that's the only way that you can do it.
Yeah.
I live on campus. It's the only way you can do it.
Oh, I like the sound of that. I've got a question. Obviously, we're going to go to the floor shortly. We're in Dublin, Ireland. You guys, 4 international festival organisers, bookers, and obviously Angela and Tom as well. So my question here is about the Irish card and how to play it. Instances where you play the card well, instances where you play the card badly. But it is a card to be played. I'm sure you guys get it played all the time. Anybody, I'm
I
interested.
encourage it. I encourage it, and I mean, unless you're from Cork, you know, then you got, you know, it's a little more difficult. But I mean, we're an Irish.
Oh, Barry, I think you better.
We're an Irish festival.
So Barry, you and I are going to have problems.
Okay. We're an Irish festival. And you know, so but of course we hire a lot of Celtic music and people. It goes back to personalities, and I think that brogue. You know, you can overdo the brogue a little bit, but if you're Irish or Scottish or Welsh or whatever, you know, it's one of those things. If you got it, you know, play it a little bit. I mean, it's once again, you can overdo it. Don't be foolish about it. Be yourself. But yeah, it's part of the attraction to our festival.
But
people, you know,
yeah.
I actually met an Irish person. You know what I mean? That's what they, you know. So it's yeah.
First of all, I want to know what Barry's problem with Cork is.
Oh, I know, Angela. I know. He's crossed the line there, hasn't he?
I love Cork.
Thank you. Love you, hate him. I think for us, we have saved the taxpayer money by being Cork. We did this Irish. Sorry, we do this thing on Ireland. Was there was Imagine Ireland campaign in America in 2011. I think you guys remember that, and Culture Ireland made funding available for activity on top of what we were already doing as the export office. And Australia, Sounds Australia, who have a 1.7 million Australian dollar budget for the same events that we have considerably lower amount of money for, had done Australia in the Air with Delta Airways, and it cost them $20,000 US. So you buy a channel, and they played Australian music for a month. So I got hooked up with the guy who did it and arranged to get on the phone with him. And it just so happened that we were doing a CD for the Oscar Wildes, which is a film event that happens with the US-Ireland Alliance, and Culture Ireland had funded the band, and we had done a promotional CD that was being put in of new Irish artists that was being put in all the bags at this event. So you had like J.J. Abrams and, you know, Tom Cruise and all of these people, John Hamm, and by the way, John Hamm is a lot smaller than you think he is. And all of these people were getting this in their CD. So I got the guy from Delta invited to this event so that I could meet him, because I was in LA for 2 days. So we brought him to lunch. He went to this. He met Saoirse Ronan. He met, you know, all the people who were being honoured that year. And he comes back to me and says, we're ready to go in September when you're at CMJ, and it cost us $5,000 for what it cost the Australians, 20,000, because his mum was Irish, his grandfather was Irish, and it was the Irish card. So there are times that we have gone to South-West and CMJ when Spain have had problems with, you know, showcase entry where all the Irish bands get through like that. So there are definitely times when being from Ireland, and I'm just being honest here, it works. But economically, Irish music sells phenomenally abroad. So it's not, sure, let us in. And people want you because you make them money. Yeah. Irish music, while we're at 0.02% of we buy of global sales, we are consistently, and that's thanks to people like Hosier and the Cranberries and Codaline and U2 going before us and kicking those doors open. We sell very well. So there is an appetite for Irish music. There is always an appetite. I don't know of a territory where people don't know that the Irish make great music. So it shouldn't be a thank you, sir, we'd love a gig, sir. But there is, be confident that you are riding a wave where people want to book you. These 4 brilliant festivals aren't here for the crack, although they probably are here for the crack, but they're here to do some work, and they're here because they can sell tickets to people who love Irish music. So kind of don't forget that element. You're going because you're wanted.
Tom.
I sell Irish music. I sell traditional Irish music around the world. I sell folk and roots music from Ireland. And you have to remember that 99 people out of 100 don't know or care about the difference between a jig, a reel, a hornpipe, a song. They don't care. So that's not what they're buying. So you have to imagine, what is it that they're buying? And what they are buying, I think, after 30 plus years of selling it, is a notion of Ireland, an image of Ireland. And as a creative, I'm assuming most people in the room are Irish people, as a creative Irish person, as an Irish artist, well, you're part of that. You're part of that process. No matter what your genre is, no matter what form of creativity you're involved in. But what I sell is an image of Ireland, and I'm acutely conscious of that, acutely aware of it. And Dawn used a word that I major in all the time earlier, authenticity. Yes. Yeah. Authenticity is very important to my acts. I look at Mairead Ní Mhaoine from Alton singing in Tokyo, and the audience are crying. And I turn to my Japanese promoter and I say, why are these Japanese people crying? Because she's singing in the Irish language. They have no idea what she's saying. They have no clue. But they're crying because she replied, because they recognize the beauty in what she's singing, what she's doing, and the authenticity in it. And she struggled for that word, but that's what it was. So, and they associate that with our creativity and our artistry and our music making. And that is what I sell. And I sell not just that, but a bigger picture of it. And I'm very, very aware of it. And I encourage my artists to be a little large in the way they think about that. Not to assume that what they obsess about, the finer points of triplets on the fiddle or crans on the uilleann pipes or whatever it is, that doesn't butter parsnips, you know?
But Cape Breton would be the 1%. We will know the difference between a jig and reel, and we will know the name of it, and we will know what county you came from.
I know.
So don't underestimate your audience either. But
sure, didn't we give it to you?
we absorb it all. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, and some of you may know the name Doc Watson as an artist. When I started working with the festival, I had the privilege to work with Doc for 1 year before he passed away. And he always said, and I'll try to say it like he does, son, if it's good music, it's just good music. And I think it goes back to the authenticity piece. I don't necessarily look at artists and worry about their where they come from culturally or geographically. Is it good music? And if it is, that'll translate to the audience. So that's my measure of putting an artist on the stage. Is it good music? because I think that was as eloquently as I could have ever had it put to me from an artist. If it's good music, it's just good music. But to the original question, I think there is a cultural curiosity, and I think it's not just are you from Ireland or are you from China or pick anywhere. I don't think that matters. I think there's a cultural curiosity amongst artists and audiences to explore that music and that authenticity in the music, and is it good music, and how does that translate to the audience? So to me, sure, you could come to America and play up the fact that you're an Irish artist, or you come from Ireland, or play that music. In our region specifically, a lot of the folks that are from that area in the Appalachian Mountain chain are Irish and Scottish anyway. They came there, over the years and settled into that area and brought the music with them. So a lot of what we experience there anyway is a uniqueness of this blending of music that was brought over from Ireland or from Scotland and created its own personality as a result of sort of that first generation passing it on to the local community. So there's a little bit of that curiosity, at least for us, about we've, for lack of a better word, bastardized the music because we tried to carry it over from the homeland and didn't do such a great job because we forgot. But we remembered what we could, and so we tried to make it something that we could remember from what was passed on to us. But I think there is, at least for us, this curiosity about what was it really like, if we were playing this jig or this reel or that based on what we could remember in our local communities because it was passed on through generations and we've forgotten. Can someone from here bring that back to our region, back to the festival, and say, well, you almost had it right, but this is actually how it is. So for us, there is certainly an interest in keeping, that's the curiosity, I guess, is making sure that we keep it true to form, if that makes any sense.
Sure it does.
See, I take it one step further. We're in the U.S. It's the designation is 501c3, which is a nonprofit educational organization, and I feel, and in the United States, and please don't hold our government against me. There is cultural appropriation and all this, and I think people have forgotten where they came from, and I think there's a great movement now, and there's such great pride in being from Ireland and Irish people, and there's just an absolute joy, and that is so evident in the music. So to go back to the very first thing that you said, which is you're having a good time, you're whatever. So for me, I feel that it is, it's incumbent upon me to educate my audience. So it's all well and good to have a Celtic band that's from Philadelphia, and they might be great players, but I'd rather have a Celtic band from Cork, because they're going to bring. Sorry, they might bring a little more whiz. So to me, if you're going to say when is it good, play the card well. Playing the card well is being authentic. Playing the card poorly, do not play into the stereotype. Do not play into the stereotype that's been set up for you. Don't fall into that trap, because in the U.S. we're just fools. I mean, we just don't get it. And I'm just going to put it right out there. And I'm only going to speak from the U.S. and I travel all over the world, and I just do not fall into the stereotype. Be who you are, be true to your roots and your ancestry and culture, and just the brilliance and the joy and the beauty and the passion in your music, and it will be good music. Look, I said when I got here, I'm so excited to be here because even bad music in Ireland's good music. So, I mean, it's the truth.
Can I subvert a stereotype and just, you refer to it that there are 41 million people in the USA who claim Irish descent.
It's absolutely.
And some form of Irish descent. But interestingly, I've managed Lunasa for 15 years. I managed Alton and toured America extensively. Where do these excellent traditional music bands play best in? I'll tell you where the Irish aren't. So don't assume, and you know, I mean no offence here, Barry, because yours is a specifically Irish American festival, and we're always delighted to be invited to play it. But
He doesn't like Cork people, though.
no, I don't work with Cork bands. No. In fairness, I would if there were any. Good. No, but the point is, interestingly enough, the largest audience for Irish traditional music and quality Irish traditional music is on the West Coast. And, you know, in the traditional settlement patterns where the Irish settled on the East Coast and then moving into Chicago and moving into elements of the Midwest, you'll find that, yes, there is an audience in Boston and New York, but there are larger audiences in elsewhere, in the South and certainly in the West Coast.
That is interesting. That
Yeah.
surprises me, actually, that it would be that way.
Yeah, and there's the other factor is, as I mentioned China earlier, is Chinese people do not know, in the main, they do not know where Ireland is or what Ireland is.
That's fair, yeah.
But they know some elements of Irish music and the way it's presented to them. Interestingly, the only way, one way, and I think I mentioned this at a previous IMRO-related event I was at, was one way that we successfully toured in China was to link up with Irish business, Irish companies who are trading there, and who want to trade on the Irish links. And the reason that Chieftains Tour happened was, quite apart from the keen willingness of the Irish government to extend some kind of cultural diplomacy in and to with China, was because there were business interests, Glanbia and companies like that.
So you were playing at nights put on by Glanbia, kind of a thing, was that it?
Well, they helped.
Okay.
And the network, you alluded to it earlier, Tom, the network of Department of Foreign Affairs, embassies. For a country as small as we are, we have quite an extensive network of consulates and embassies. They all have cultural attaches. They all have a bit of cultural money, so sometimes they can get you a second show for a diaspora show. There is now a minister at the diaspora. So when we go to South by Southwest and to CMJ and talking about not playing into stereotypes, I think we're the only party at South by Southwest that doesn't do drink. Just to get ourselves out of the stereotype, we do the full Irish breakfast. That's our show, where we feed your souls and your stomach, and then you can go everywhere else to we want you sober listening to great music. But there are the Department of Foreign, there's consulates everywhere, and also Silicon Valley now. There's Ireland Week, which happens in October. Silicon Valley, there's a huge amount of, I know there's a lot of American tech businesses here. There's a huge amount of Irish tech businesses, and they will often come to people like Tom and agents here and look for Irish acts to book for their big shows and stuff. So you get the stripes.
Or indeed, you can go in and take corporate money, God forbid, and
there's nothing wrong with corporate money. It's the same colour.
It's and go in and do a corporate gig, and you'll exactly.
Playing for Facebook in Palo Alto, Zuck and the lads.
Well, you know, actually,
or paying for Viagogo, which is an Irish company which it employs loads of people.
Viagogo's Irish, is it?
There's, sorry, not Viagogo. It's not that. It sounds like that, but it's an Irish business in LA. And we were at Ireland Week this year, and there are as many tech companies in LA hire as many Americans there as Facebook and Google and them hire Irish here. So it's very much an equal and find out. It's really easy through the Department of Foreign Affairs where you can get those supports depending on where you're touring.
Well, look, that was fascinating. A lot to unpack there. But I would like to extend the opportunity for people to ask questions. So, is there any questions from the floor? If you want to stick up your hand, please don't be shy. I'm going to come to you in a second, sir. But that lady 2 rows back, you got your hand up first. Blue Gansey.
My name is Cleve Regal, and I've recently started working with Keela. in a project management promotional capacity. And what I wanted to ask, given the cost of going across to these festivals in the US and Germany and China, is there much of a market amongst corporate sponsors to come behind these bands and share some of the cost, given the tax issues, particularly in the US? Sorry, more for Angela and Tom, really. How have you found your experience in getting a corporate sponsor behind these Irish bands as they go across the US?
Quite honestly, we struggle to get a corporate sponsor for the music for the Irish Music Export Office, because I don't think it's and we don't go looking for them, because it's a showcase by showcase. But there's a movement because the industry has shrunk and the ways you can get money, the costs haven't come down, but the fees have. So you've major agencies like CODA and ATC. And Paradigm at both sides of the Atlantic, who are now hiring brand specialists. So an agent will come together and they'll say, right, we're touring Lancome around Germany, and the Lancome's agent could have a brand specialist who then goes to a brand in Germany and said, would you like to support this? So the band get paid, the tour gets supported, and it doesn't all fall. So there are kind of new formulations of that kind coming out. I would say, rather than take that on as a project manager yourself and you're trying to get the band out there, I would look into whether the agent they have has that kind of staff on board, because I know the bigger agents now are hiring specialist brand association staff.
I'm also program manager festival, and it's called the Guinness Irish Festival, and it runs in Sion in Switzerland, and it's quite big. It sells 27,000 tickets and it runs over 3 nights. And Keela have played there many times. But note the name. Yeah, Guinness. So they do sponsor. I've succeeded in the past in getting corporate sponsorship from Aer Lingus, and I have worked with, as I mentioned, with some of the larger food export companies. So if you can identify, I work, by the way, with the Irish Tourist Board in Switzerland. I've worked with the Irish Tourist Board all over the world, because I've gone to them and said, I'm touring this band in Spain, I'm touring this band here. It may be a small amount of money, but every €1,000 helps. It may be, we've got a Monday off in Madrid and we'll come to the embassy and play acoustically at a little function. Or we'll come and do a small corporate event for you. But I make it my business to try and reach out to the people, what I mentioned before, identify your territories and identify your players. And by players, I don't just mean agents, presenters, promoters. I mean publicists. Nobody's mentioned that word today. But the first thing I do, in fact, I tell a story about Paddy Maloney of the Chieftains. So we just did a tour in Japan in December, and with another band I manage, a Danish band, Dreamers Circus. And the Chieftains were doing it, and then we agreed we'd do some shows together. And Paddy, before he went out to do this 2.5-week tour in Japan, last May he went and he did 10 days promo and publicity ahead of the tour. And what I really admire about Paddy Maloney is his absolute focus on the next gig. So I went to Paddy and said, here's the schedule, here's the tour schedule. And he said, great. He says, where's the promo schedule? Where's the press and publicity schedule? Because that's what's going to sell the brand. And he is a master, as you know, of selling the brand. And I respect that. I salute that. So find out who the players are, find out how you can publicize it, because when you do that, all of these people here, all the buyers are going to love you. Okay. Because when you're generating press, you're selling tickets for them. absolutely. So if I'm going to invest, it will be in publicity and press and promo. Now, as Angela has alluded to, the industry has changed. In the past, record companies used to take that on board to a greater or lesser degree. But that's more or less gone. You'd be very lucky to have tour support now. You'd be very lucky to have a record deal that will give you press and promo that will do it. But I wouldn't undertake a new release in a big territory like North America without hiring first a publicist.
Spot on, Tom. We'll keep going. I want to get in a few more questions. This man in the front row.
Hi guys. Thanks for all your information and nice to hear you. My name is Ivan Murray. My situation is I've got a duo, folk duo. We play Irish and old-time American stuff. We do original stuff as well. And we've toured in Europe quite a lot, off our own back. My question is just how to get to that next level. I mean, with agents and stuff like that. I mean, what's your advice there? How to go about getting an agent, or, you know, I mean, apart from me walking up to either of you now and going, look, here's a CD or whatever. Do you know? I mean, that's probably not cool or whatever. But, you know, how do you make that? You know, what would you advise there?
So I'll take a shot at that. I had an agency previously before this, and actually represented two bands from Ireland in the U.S. And the way that it came about was actually through the record label, for the most part. But I will say that, and one of them was through the record label, and one was simply a chance meeting, where I had a chance to meet the artist and get to know their music and get to know them personally. So kind of two scenarios there. The bifurcation of that, I think, you know, is important. I think on one side where you look at just the personal relationship and getting to know someone who's a U.S. agent and developing that relationship with a U.S. agent becomes important. First and foremost, they can't sell you if they don't believe in you. So I think that becomes key. You have to get to know an agent. I know I'll get back to the part that you asked, but that piece becomes important. And then the other piece of that is, you know, having a record label or a publicist or someone bring an artist to you. That's a totally different scenario, because in that situation, there's already a team sort of built behind the artist. They just need someone to push the product in the market. But I think if you're an artist and you're trying to find a U.S. agent, first and foremost, there's more artists than there are agents. So the proposition there is always going to be it's going to be tricky. Just a numbers game, it's going to be tricky. But I think the best way to go about that, and not to beat the horse here, as they say, but I think getting involved with the professional associations, showing up at the showcases, giving those agents a chance to see you. It's amazing how many agents come to me and say, do you know any history on this band? And in many cases, they're reaching out to us to say, do you know that artist? Do you know their music? I like their product. What's their sellability? Would you book them? So I think those showcases become especially important because the agents are watching. And if they like what you do, they're going to reach out to us and say, do you like them? Would you buy them? And if we say yes, then they're going to say, I want to book you. So I think that's a very simplified version of an answer to that, but there's so many pathways of entry into answering that question that at the highest level, I think that the answer is put yourself in front of the agents at every opportunity you have in those professional situations to showcase your music.
Is there these like folk alliance showcases and stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. Americana Music Association, International Bluegrass Music Association, Folk Alliance, those type things, Americana UK, all of those, because in many cases we're coming over here and the agents from here would say, would you buy them in the U.S. if we were representing them or had a partner agency in the U.S. that we could pair you with? So those conversations become important. And I don't want to, again, I said it earlier, I don't want to underplay the importance of getting in front of those industry folks in those situations. I think it can be a real game changer for the artist.
I'm going to keep going. Gentlemen here, 4 rows back. Yeah, yes, sir.
Good question there. With the buyers, like the festival stuff, would you look past a band or artist that has no manager, like independent artists, no record label?
So I would deal more, like I was going to answer to the agency question. There are lots of times where I don't deal with agents or managers. There's lots of times where I would deal directly with the artist, and even of significant stature, sometimes I would deal directly with the artist. Artistically, it's so much better. I'm not having, like, no offense to agents, they're there to protect the artist and protect their best interests. But when I want to have that artistic discussion, if management gets in the way, that doesn't serve me or the artist, because then the artist comes and they're like, they didn't tell us this, or that this was going to be a part of the show. There was a miscommunication. That's so vital. If you're going to have an agent, make sure they represent your values, because when I deal with agents and I can clearly see that I would be horrified if I was an artist dealing with some agents. Some, not all. Some agents just have a specific purpose and their artists miss out on opportunities because they're a bit too jaded. Don't assume that all festival buyers are going to take advantage of an artist because they don't have representation as well. There is a specific point they can protect. At certain levels, it's going to become absolutely mandatory that you have an agent or a manager. But there are, and we're not small potatoes necessarily, but there's, again, we're putting on something that's very cohesive as a show amongst many shows. It matters that there's artistic integrity and that I can talk to that artist. It just happens so many times where that isn't the case, and there's I have lots of examples where it's taken many years to get an artist to our event because someone has blocked me from getting that artist, and we never forget.
True story, anecdote, my festival, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Keb Mo, the artist Keb Mo. Brilliant. He played our festival before he broke big and toured out with Bonnie Raitt. And I've been with my festival 45 years. I started in utero. And basically, so I was lucky enough to, be sitting with him prior to him going on stage. So he and I built this great, bond together. Anyways, fast forward to him coming back with Taj Mahal last year. So he was with us in 94. Now he's come back in 2017. And he sees me in the backstage area, and he recognizes me because I look exactly the same. And he, we had a nice hug and a chat, and he said, how come you've not had me back? I thought I did a bad job. I had to say to him, because I could never get past your manager. Because your manager didn't think my event was appropriate. Like his manager wanted him in stadiums. His manager wanted him in PACs. His manager wanted him in different, didn't want him to do festivals. And I said to him, well, it's not exactly like I could call you directly. And he said, give me your phone. And he put his cell phone number in my cell phone. He said, now you can. So that unquestionably does happen where, we've developed relationships with the artists themselves. And I love what you said. Don't think for just because we go direct, we're going to say, come on, Wink, you're going to, you'll do it for us. You'll do a throw-in for us, whatever. I'll make sure you get an extra hot dog or something like that. It's not about that. It really isn't. I mean, it's our job to take the best care of you because you're going to tell people that we took good care of you the same. So, I mean, there's the same, this is a little puddle we're all splashing around in, and it takes very little for bad news to travel.
Okay, well, did you, this month, you both did. Okay. We're going to take two more questions. I think that's fair to say. Sir, do you want to go ahead?
I don't even know how to put this out there, but I don't mean it to sound windy at all. It's something I've been curious about for a long time now. A couple of years ago, well, actually, my band is split up now recently just because of general things that happened with bands. But we were going at it hard for about 6 years, doing all the things that we thought were right, working really hard. We were doing major. We were like a bluegrass country rock band. We were doing Rock House, yeah. I know we met with two servers like Rock House, yeah. We done some like all of the major kind of country, relatively major country music festivals in Europe. Slog, we were coming home in a split managed, no label, no nothing, everything ourselves, you know. Got to this point ourselves. In the end, we had agents. We hooked up with Martin Nolan and here, and we hooked up with Midnight Mango in the UK, and a smaller one in Switzerland called Echo. My question being about the grants, about the grants and things like hard working class heroes. In my opinion, we were ticking the boxes, but we've never got any of these things coming back to us ever. You know, I don't know why. You know, it's fine. You get the reply back eventually that your application was unsuccessful. Fair enough. Maybe we're really bad at filling out application forms, but they never told us why.
So Hard Working Class Heroes is our showcase event, and it's open for applications. We have a judging panel, and I think are the only festival in the world where we do offer you feedback. So you would have gotten a number to ring for the following 2 weeks where you can ring up, and so we have judges 75% international, 25% Irish. We have 5, we used to have 4, we now have 5 areas where you're marked out of 10, and you can get those and any comments your judge made back at you. We make our judging panel 75% international, so it's not a familiarity thing. But we do occupy a space in terms of, so if you think of how music is resourced in Ireland, there's an agency for pop, rock, everything else. There's IMC for jazz and new music, there's CMC for composers, and there's Music Network for classical and trad. So where we fall is a very specific market. Who gets selected for our event is down to we go between 35 and 42 international and Irish judges, and they all have jobs in the contemporary music industry. So our judges are the people who book South by, the people who book, the 14 festivals, Primavera, Eurosonic. They make up part of it. We have managers of internationally successful artists. We have people who run radio shows and book radio shows. So everybody who runs the gambit of our industry. So the most important and why 3 of those 5 have to do with your music. Is it commercial? Is it viable? And do you then have an international plan? So those are the criteria. Then we used to be 100 showcasing, and now we're 50. So it's hugely competitive. We go between anywhere between 700 and 1,000 applications every year. So we leave it up to the industry that we're trying to sell, or that our artists who apply are trying to get to. We leave it up to them to make the decision. So we go, I suppose the short answer is the market decides who showcases at Hard Working Class Heroes. Just for the international opportunities then, we don't decide or select who plays at the international shows at the export office. We get involved once you get your invite. So you can apply to any amount of festivals. So the 14 that we do are available on our website at musicfromireland.org, and you apply to those yourself, and then when you get selected is when the funding kicks in. So there is no the selection criteria then is based on how those festivals pick their artists and pick their showcasing.
Okay, and just an observation, something, sorry for your first name, but kind of based on what you were saying about you taking the Irish and Scottish Celtic music and making it into what it is now. I think in the opposite, we're kind of seeing what you do. You've done and admiring all your amazing bluegrass bands and amazing country artists, and can kind of understand and have a relationship with it. And I think there's some amazing bands here and in Scotland taking that and maybe more on the doorstep with Europe. And I think that should be nurtured more.
I thought you were a red hand.
Yeah.
But it's horses for courses.
No, it's just things I'd be curious about.
And it's where you position yourself and where you place yourself, and it's always going to be a challenge, and it's back to identity, authenticity, and brand. And I say this respectfully. Well, I'm talking about the music. I say this respectfully when I just make the observation that it's so much harder to position yourself in an international marketplace as coming from Ireland but being perceived to play a music that's associated with another culture. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It doesn't mean it's not artistically laudable and credible. It's just harder. And it's about identity, expectation, sometimes stereotyping, but it's about all of those things. And then you've got to be aware of that and challenge yourself to find ways to overcome it. And peer-to-peer networking is very often the way.
To be fair, it is, first of all, very sad to hear Rackhouse Pilford broken up. Great band. Saw them live in Carrick and Shannon, and I really enjoyed that gig in, can't remember the venue now, but it's on the corner. Yeah, that's it, yeah. But I want to say one thing as well, because I actually have a similar experience. I used to apply for hard working class heroes all the time. And I swear, Angela, this isn't going where you think it's going. Wait for my
She's
story.
from Cork, you know.
My band used to apply all the time, right? And we really wanted to play hard working class heroes because it's a cool festival. And we didn't get to play it, and I honestly did have an axe to grind. But then I contacted Angela directly, and she gave me the feedback. And I was actually amazed at how feckin' honest it was. She said, look, this is the judge, here's the feedback. Look, I didn't agree with it, I didn't like it, but I have to respect the fact that the process was totally transparent. And that she gave us that feedback. And that actually for me was just closure. And I think, I don't know, but if you did contact Angela Dorgan directly, I bet she would have given you the feedback. Because I think you have to, I'm not sure if you request the feedback or...
So, because, sorry, there's 2 weeks from, and just FYI, it's the saddest day of my year to say no to 700 and yes to only 50. So, but that's no reason. But I think... you get we're sorry your application wasn't successful, and then there's a 2-week window where you can ring the office,
right,
and I will talk you through. We won't tell you who the judge was, but we'll tell you where they're based and what area of music they work in, and then we'll talk you through and contextualize. And this is why we don't email them, because some judges, we ask them to mark out of 10, but 5 is the highest they'll give. So that's why we ask people to ring, is so we can give you the feedback, but we can also put that 4 out of 5 in if you hear 4 and you're like, oh, we got 4 out of 10, we're way better than that. But it could be that judge is the highest score they gave was 5, so we can put that in context. And then we can also in that phone call offer you our own kind of, what you could do next and other stuff you could do and stuff. But there are only 50 places. And also, for the record, De Laurentiis didn't get in the first time they applied. And then they rang and they got the feedback, and then they worked towards the feedback that judge had given, and then they got in the following year. So.
I'd like
and I'm sorry.
This is like a therapy session. I like this.
Well, I'd like to add along those lines.
For you.
Yeah.
I'm now suddenly so glad I was nice to him.
There is just tons and tons of fabulous bands that we all see all the time that we don't hire. It doesn't mean that we don't really like you. And then also bands that we hire maybe once and they don't get back in. And that's kind of the worst, because then they think they did something wrong, which is, I can honestly tell you, was never the case with us. It's just that we moved on to other new bands. We're above 80% of our acts are bands that we've had before at some point. So a new band, a new emerging artist getting into our festival is very small. It's a small number. And so obviously you can tell that we're going to see a ton of new bands. We like them all. We talk about them for years sometimes, and sometimes it just never happens. So it really is never about the art, I mean, it's just it's kind of a numbers, I mean, it's a tough industry in that sense.
Yeah, from a percentage standpoint, 90% of the time I'm telling people no. And it is hard to tell that 90% no, but put some actual numbers to that. Factual numbers. I probably get anywhere between 500 to 1,000 people contacting me a month saying, I want my band to play your event. We only book about 150 artists, so I'm statistically telling 85 to 90% of the people no. And that becomes difficult. But I think it's important for this group to hear that. But also going back to what Dawn said, just if I say no to you the first time, don't think that means no forever. But some people hear that no, and it's it's the hardest no they've ever heard in their life. And it's not a hard no, it's a no for now. And I think, you know, it's kind of like my high school prom date, you know, is there a chance that what you're saying is maybe it could happen? Yes.
I'm
there's a
thinking
may-
Dumb and Dumber now. That's it. So,
And
So
she
you-
said
there's
no,
a
there's
chance.
no.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Well,
say,
one in a million.
But, but I do think it's important for you to hear that no doesn't mean no forever, and percentage-wise, the number is higher that we're going to say no.
Right, we do have time for one more question, and I'll tell you with two, but we'll have to go fast on these two, right? This man, and we're done. This man here.
First of all, thanks William for your talk. I had absolutely no idea the costs of touring to the US, so that was a lot learned even just in that. My question is probably based more towards Angela and Tom, and will kind of be what's the best way of getting on the Irish festivals for local bands, apart from the obvious of like them seeing you or you know emailing.
What kind of music do you play?
Alternative rock music.
So, thanks. So
See ya.
here's an answer to your question, and it comes back to your question as well as how do you find the right agent. What I think is very helpful is find out who your music gang is, and the entire music industry is a haystack. You're a needle in that haystack, but you can make steps to make each haystack a little smaller and more manageable. So, and then the haystack is in every territory and everywhere you want to go. So my advice to artists is always point people at your music gang. So we have a music portal called Breaking Tunes. There's over 14,000 bands on it. It's a word of mouth, self-building portal. And we have, at the end of your Breaking Tunes profile is a sounds like an influence by. You should populate that with your music gang. So what I mean by that is if I'm a booker and I land on your page, or you've written to me and said, I'd love to play your festival, remember that everyone in the industry has an ego. So if you're writing to Paul McClune or Kate Brennan Harding to get played on their show, or if you want to be part of Joe.ie's New Music Week, if you want to play Body and Soul or Castlepalooza or whatever festival it is, you have to stroke their ego first. So to do that, you have to do a bit of homework. And I don't mean stroke the ego in a bad way. I mean know your stuff about them. They go to a lot of trouble to put on their lineup. You should at least know what kind of lineup that is. So don't send metal tracks to Body and Soul, because that's not what they book. So a really useful way to point them straight to that is if you have in your sounds like an influence by, at least there should be 20-25 bands there, and it should be based on music that influences you or that you sound like in the territories that will be your primary targets. So your first primary target is Ireland. So you should have a list of 5, 6, 7 Irish acts, 1 or 2 that are right ahead of you. So if you haven't played Hard Working Class Heroes, have 2 acts who you sound like or are influenced by who have. So that's your first pointer. Then look at those, use that gang and search all of the festivals that you think you'd like to play on, search their past lineups and see if any of those bands have played it. And if they have, when you're writing to Jenny at Body and Soul, or you're writing to MCD about what they do, or you're writing to Aiken or all these new festivals, Knockenstock and Fantastival, pay them the compliment. You know, I see you had such and such played last year. We play to very similar audiences. We play similar venues to them. And then just amplify that. So you write to Kate or you write to Paddy and say, I'd see your Joe.ie sound of last week was blah de blah. We sound very like them. So you've stroked his ego and said, I click on your website. Clicks to his website, get them revenue, listens to Paul McClune's show or what he lives and dies by. So do your homework and do them the compliment of saying, I'm writing to you because I know what festival you're at. And I think a trap you can fall into is like, I'm going to try all of them because there's loads of them and maybe I'll fit. And I think that's a waste of your time, and given how many emails land in your inboxes, a couple of minutes of their time that maybe they'd love back. And I think if you use those pointers, that can be helpful.
Excellent. And this gentleman for our last question.
My name is John Lynch and I'm the leader of the Kilfenora Kelly band.
I know who you are.
And my
I'd just like to ask the panel, what are their viewpoints on bands that are not fully professional? And when I say professional, I mean on the road all the time. Because we have a band, and what we're trying to do is preserve the tradition that it comes from. But also, in order for that to happen, you have to tour it. Traditionally, we were a Cayley band, but we have advanced a bit into the concert area to such an extent that Siobhan Long is confused as to what we're doing. But at the same time, we're still pursuing at it and persevering at it. But I was wondering what way you view bands that are not on the road all the time. But what we try to do is pick, we'll say, a year in advance and try then to maybe get there. I'm finding it difficult to get outside the country. We work within Ireland at the moment, but I would like to get outside. But we're, everything that you've said to me, we're the opposite to it. So it's my very opposite to it.
I'll give you a real quick answer to that from our perspective. There's one band that has played for us for 20 years, and we're their only gig every year.
Yeah, it's not an issue for us, and we've hired you, like Kilfenora Cayley Band. You know, whether you have an agent, you don't have an agent, or you're an emerging artist that you know, maybe we'll see this weekend or something like that. I would agree with what was said before, that, you know, we're pretty much done booking for this year, so it's going to be a year or two out. But that stuff, you know, if I like somebody, or if we like somebody, you know, we're gonna find a way to get you there.
I have a question. Does Cayley music travel? Like, is that a genre that travels internationally? Does it do well?
A lot of the traditional music's people come from Cayley bands originally, maybe.
Right.
Such as Jackie Daly and Donnan and all those. But my problem is, like, when I'm trying to sell our concerts around the country, there's a perception like we're a Cayley band, we're going to sit down in our butts and we're going to play jigs and reels all night.
Right, yeah.
But that's not the case.
Okay.
Because, like, you won't be heard at the concert hall if you're going to sit down and play jigs and reels all night.
Yeah,
so we try to adapt it. But my biggest problem is breaking down the stereotypical viewpoint of what we are, even though we originated from it and we still do Cayleys, you know, but we also do concerts, but it's a full show. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
So just say that, like, what's the name of the group again?
It's known as the Kilfenora Cayley Band.
So I mean, it's in the title. So I would specify to a buyer, like, that's what one aspect of what you do, but not everything. Tell us what you can do, and it's always about seeing a group live. Fundamentally, my first response then is, if I haven't seen you and you haven't toured outside of your region, please have a live performance video I can refer to. Save me the time of having to YouTube you, and you've got one shot. Give me 2 or 3 videos. If I have to go looking for you and I don't find it in 5 minutes or less, I'm going to pass on that email, because there's just that many emails. So a live performance video will go a long way. Make that contact, make a great impact, and hopefully I'll see you the next time I'm over here. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. It's just the live performance, because CDs aren't going to tell the whole story. Something that is a produced video isn't going to totally... There's mechanics that can get around that. I want to know that you're going to fit. You're a fit for my festival, and vice versa, that we're a fit for you. I want to see that you've got camaraderie on stage, that the audience appreciates you, and that's where the live performance element will give you 100%. Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think that was a very illuminating evening. We've covered a lot of ground, and I want to thank you for your rapt attention. I did promise them at least one rapturous applause, so maybe will we do it this time for our panel? See you all again. Thanks again to our panel: Angela, Tom, Barry, Lisa, Dawn, and Steve. Safe home.